Is Vampire in the Garden, Netflix's new original anime series, worth watching, or simply mid? Once upon a time, humans and vampires lived in harmony in a place called Paradise. That time is long forgotten. Or is it? As war rages through the humans' town, a fateful meeting of one human and the vampire queen may just change the world. I'm about to dive into these 5 episodes with spoilers. Vampire in the Garden is such a short series that you should just go watch it if you haven't yet. It's essentially a 2-hour movie. Just make sure to come back and share your thoughts with me when you're done. Netflix. Oh, Netflix. Vampire in the Garden had so much potential, but 5 episodes were simply just not enough to do this series justice. I'm not saying it's bad. I enjoyed my time with it, actually. I was close to saying it's good, borderline great, had I not started to pick some of the details apart. Details that needed more development. You know, Netflix did the same thing with Castlevania, only giving its first season 4 episodes, not even 5. Luckily for us, those 4 episodes were fantastically done. We managed to garner 3 additional seasons, 32 episodes in total, to tell the full story of Castlevania. One of my main issues with Vampire in the Garden was that everything just moved too quickly. There were only 5 episodes to get everything in, but we really didn't have enough time to grasp onto these characters. It's almost as if Netflix will only give a few episodes to kind of show proof of concept. If it does well, great, they'll greenlight another season. If not, oh well, we tried and we didn't spend too much money because it's only 5 episodes. I really wish they would just go all in and give 8, 10 episodes at the bare minimum to try to tell a full story. I don't know how that's going to go in the future when they're cutting their animation budget, but we'll see. But in Vampire in the Garden, main characters Momo and Fine just don't have that much depth to them, which could have easily been fixed by just having a few more personal moments between the two of them while they're on this journey to find paradise. This is essentially an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. In this case, it's forbidden friendship between that of a human and a vampire. Our main characters, Fine, the vampire queen, and Momo, the worm, the vampire slang for human because of their warm blood, wind up on the run together. A war between vampires and humans has been raging across this tundra for years, all in this actually really cool looking world filled with guns, mechs, and monsters. It seems to be going for that sort of far future steampunk, as we see abandoned cities and scrapped technology being salvaged for their wall of light, a large electric tower in the middle of their town that powers what looks like giant UV Batman-type signal lights used to help deter and defend against vampire attacks. Human life is hard. It's all about survival here. Most seem to be part of the military, focusing on taking out vampires and just making it through the night. There is no fun, there is no happiness for humans. Music and really any sort of culture has been prohibited, as they can alert the vampires' keen senses. Vampires, on the other hand, at least the majority of that we saw, look to be wealthy aristocrats having the time of their life with ballroom dancing, food and music, and don't forget the ability to fly. Of course, don't forget they are also bloodthirsty monsters who even use a suicide drug to enhance their abilities during battle, that will ultimately leave them for dead, transform them for the time being into these large bat-like monsters. So what happens when our main character Momo runs out during an attack with a prohibited music box found on one of their raids? Well, she runs into the Queen of Vampires, a woman who refuses to drink blood and seems to have a soft spot for worms. The two quickly become friends, and the rest of the series plays out as a road trip. The two looking for paradise, a place where both humans and vampires can coexist with each other. Now, on for a plot point that confused me a little bit here. In episode 3, the duo makes their way to a city separated down the middle by a canal. On one side, vampires, and on the other side, humans. The two coexist with each other, bartering for survival. The humans providing blood and the vampires giving back money. While a very interesting plot venue, why does this city work like this? It sort of breaks the whole lore we've learned about thus far. Vampires and humans are in a war together, but these vampires don't seem to be 100% monstrous. So is this just a one-off situation? Or is the war at a standstill in this one specific city? The people on the human side have the same emblem of the 2 snakes that we see at the beginning with the military, and this all just left me confused, honestly, because it wasn't really explained. Another situation, we are also introduced to Momo's uncle earlier, which I don't remember if they said his name, so let me know if you caught his name in the comments. But this uncle seems to be leading a small team of spec ops to find Momo and Fine, and basically capture and bring Momo back to her mother, who is the commander of the military. But there's a scene where he gives blood to vampires to keep them from hunting humans. But alas, the end of this long journey brings Fine and Momo to Volskaya, the Paradise Village. where humans and vampires are living with each other in harmony. But things don't seem to be quite kosher. They stay there for a bit and Fine winds up leaving Momo, even after this creepy vampire is like, yo, it's not as it seems. But don't worry, he's just got a blood disease, don't worry about him, he's just kind of crazy. And they're like, alright, cool, we'll just stay here, that's fine. Of course, the town lords in vampires to somehow use their blood to power the town via some washed up submarine that's probably nuclear. You would think that Fine, this vampire queen, would be a little smarter than this, but she isn't. And this leads to the two pursuing parties, both the military humans and the vampires looking to bring their queen Fine back, wind up clashing at the town. Fine ultimately sacrifices herself for Momo because she's reminded of her former friend Arya, someone that loved her very much despite her being a vampire and Arya being a human. This ending is why I felt that Vampire in the Garden needed more episodes. The love and friendship that these two shared just felt a bit forced in 5 episodes. And it's really only about 4 because they only meet at the end of episode 1. Yes, we have some montages of them on the road, but we're not really given how much time they actually spent together. A few more episodes to just pad out their backstories, to see how they grow with each other's company a bit more would have gone a long way in my opinion. Essentially, Momo changes her mind about vampires rather quickly because she walks on Fine gardening. We'll get to that gardening scene in a minute here. And playing her music. Don't get me wrong, these were both great scenes. We just really jumped from these two to them being BFFs almost immediately. I remember Momo's best friend literally just died in front of her eyes a little while earlier. And now I'm going to talk a little smack about the name Vampire in the Garden. If Netflix's plan is to see how these initial episodes do and possibly order more, I think this is a bad name. There is that scene with Momo walking in on Fine in the garden, and in case you missed it, there's an after-credits scene with Momo presumably finding paradise, with both humans and vampires gardening together. But how do you make season 2 of Vampire in the Garden? Will there be more gardens? I guess it could follow more of Momo's journey between the end of episode 5 and the post-credits scene, but I would actually like to see more of her uncle's past. That seemed real cool. You know, thinking about her uncle, it actually seems like maybe more plot was cut out due to the episode constraints. As we see a few glimpses of his past, this cool guy with a katana who had his sister, the military commander, murder his vampire wife and everyone else at their wedding. I'd love to see a whole season around him, his backstory, maybe even his spec op buddies, who seem to be vampire hunters. I guess they could call it My Cool Samurai Uncle, if you don't want to have to shoehorn in another garden scene. But I don't want to sound like I thought Vampire in the Garden was terrible. It wasn't. I actually enjoyed it. I just can't stress enough about how I think that this was an overall missed opportunity by Netflix. Vampire in the Garden did leave me a bit sad at the end, and that was on purpose. It's a bit of a sad story. Fine sacrificing herself for her new friend Momo, and Momo eventually finding happiness in an actual paradise. I really enjoy the aesthetics of the animation. Vampire in the Garden comes from Wit Studios, the animation studio responsible for the first few seasons of Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga, the recently released Netflix original film Bubble, and the upcoming anime adaptation of Spy Family, or Spy X Family, Spy Cross Family. I thought Wit did a fantastic job setting up the mood. This world is cold and dreary, and quite scary. It actually reminded me a bit of another vampire flick, 30 Days of Night, with Josh Hartnett. Yes, there was some CGI and some corners cut on animation, mostly this dancing scene, but overall I liked the look as it had that soft OVA, higher quality animation, if you know what I'm talking about. Alright, review time. I'm going to give Vampire in the Garden a 3 out of 5, which is good. So mid, right? I know people sometimes use mid as bad, but for me that's average, right? Good animation, cool world building, combined with a lack of character development and really just not enough episodes to flesh out the story. I do hope people watch Vampire in the Garden and that it does well enough for Netflix to order another season. I truly think there's potential here, but they really have to go all in. We all know how brutal Netflix can be with this stuff. Just look at Cowboy Bebop, a live-action adaptation I have a lot of problems with, but I actually would have given season 2 a shot to see where they went with the story. But unfortunately, that's never going to happen because Netflix, nope. What did you think of Vampire in the Garden? I'd love anime recommendations for something similar if you have one. Subscribe for more anime, film, and TV videos here on Current Kick. And until next time, see ya.